Well, last night on this program, the Treasurer said he'd be happy to meet Bono to discuss Australia's contribution to eliminating world poverty. I caught up with the U2 singer shortly after he'd appeared on stage at the Make Poverty History concert in Melbourne this evening. Bono, thanks for joining us.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Tony.
Let's start with a purely political question. A lot of people still want to see a meeting between you and John Howard. Do you still think there's any possibility of that?
Look, I'm very sorry for appearing a little arrogant in my response to a meeting with the Prime Minister. It's a terrible rock star's twitch, but there you go. I think it was fairer to say I was just a little miffed that he didn't seem that interested in the meeting or indeed the issues. I'm in a great deal of admiration for him. He's led your country to great prosperity, but he has also led your country to the bottom of the league table in terms of involvement with the world's most vulnerable populations, and I don't think that's the kind of Australia that most people left or right want to live in. That's my impression.
Well, that sounds like half an apology for your sort of reasonably undiplomatic approach when you were asked about the interview. It was construed that when you said you'd talk to him if he was prepared to think about 0.7% as a serious objective, you'd be prepared to speak to him, but otherwise not.
Yeah, well, I regret that, Tom, and as I say, I would be delighted to meet with him. But 0.7%, you know, it's not just a badge people can wear or an aspiration, as Peter Costello suggests. If you sign on for 0.7, and remember the Prime Minister has, the government has, that means 0.7% by 2015. So if there's no real plan on how to get to that by 2015, then this rings as insincerity, and people don't believe it, and they're right not to, and they're right to be suspicious. Although I'm grateful to Peter Costello for the aid increase that has happened. You know, I think it's an 81% increase over the last couple of years, but most of that is for the tsunami and for Iraq and debt cancellation. So it's a bit of a cod to say that you're moving in the right direction.
Well, you may be aware that the Treasurer last night on this program said he would be happy to meet you and happy to talk to you. Will you try and push ahead and get that meeting?
I really would. And again, I know these are very busy people and very important people, and I'm a touring musician at this point. But there is a lot to talk about. I've just come from a Make Poverty History rally organised by two university students, and looking out into that audience and just seeing the young faces. These are people very proud of their country, and they see this as a very big issue indeed. And there was kids talking to me about the new Australia that they want to live in, that they want Australia to behave like the continent that it is rather than an island. And they feel that historically they've been following rather than leading on these issues. And I think, I'm here to serve them, and I would represent them in such a meeting, yes.
Well, you know that you're talking about some pretty hard nuts here. I know that you've won over some conservatives in the United States, Paul Volcker to Jesse Helms. You've even had meetings with George W. Bush. Some might argue that in John Howard's case, for example, that he's a tougher nut to crack than any of those. Yeah,
well, he's your nut to crack. And I think, I wish you well at it, but there is a wave breaking, and it's not to the left or to the right. It's churches and student activists, it's soccer moms, it's surfers, and I would just say, get up on the, ride that wave, get up on the surfboard, or it's going to break right over you. This is a very serious global movement, and you can't have all the benefits of globalization without some of the responsibilities. And that's really what's going on here. These are dangerous times. There's a nervous energy out there with Iraq and what's happening, and people in the rest of the world are not sure if we in the West and you down here, what our values are. Do we have any values? This is the way they meet us. They either meet us through trade or through aid or through the military. And I would just suggest this is a better investment, if you like, of the Treasury's money in making friends with potential enemies, rather than defending yourself against them later, which is, you know, a lot more expensive. I mean, I'd see it as a strategic value, as well as just the mercy corps. I mean, I see people that look at me and go, oh, it's Bono, it's a, you know, rich rock star, spoiled rotten child, you know, in a picture with poor African child. And I would just ask people to just not to see me, but to think about the issues and to think about what they mean across a few different services. Not just the mercy mission, but the strategic. And indeed at home, what kind of Australia do you want to live in? We've got all this incredible prosperity. I just have to tell you, I've been coming here over 20 years. I'm just in awe of what you've done here. And I look up to Australia. And we're just looking for leadership, really. Rather than Australia the laggard, we'd actually like to see Australia show some vision, and I really believe it's here. I really believe it's here, certainly in this next generation.
Tim Costello's brother, Peter Costello's brother, Tim, referred to you as a prophet. It's clear the sort of message that you get across behind closed doors to politicians like his brother Peter. Is that the sort of thing you want to say to the man who's chairing the G20 meeting at the present moment?
I'll make a prophet. I'll say that. I think, you know, rock stars are good with a loudspeaker. You know, we like high volume. But we're nothing if the melody lines aren't clear. And I think we in this case, I'm singing a tune that I don't own, you know, and it belongs to a movement. It's I think the most important movement in recent times since civil rights in the United States in the 60s and 70s. And look, if I can get in to behind closed doors and present some clear ideas, try to solve the problems with politicians, as we've done with Bush's administration, Clinton's, Blair's, Chirac's. I'm happy to do it. But the thing that will carry it in the end won't be the likes of me. It's the social movement that's going to carry it. There's a growing social movement on these issues. But yes, I would love to be in a meeting with Peter Costello or the Prime Minister or whoever is serious about